Hello and welcome to The Telescope. Every week we'll bring you a fresh insight from the biggest car market in the world. Don't look away. It's still me. We are in Dali today, about 2,000 meters up in altitude, and the solar radiation, as you can see, is quite intense. And I'm taking my wedding pictures very soon. So I'm instructed by my wife to put this on. So bear with me. I will take this off when we go inside the car, but just focus on the car, less of me, okay? Today's car is the Zeekr 9X. It's a plug-in hybrid full-size SUV that only has 898 horsepower. I say only because we are testing today only the base spec that only has 2 motors. There's an even more powerful tri-motor setup with 1,400 horsepower. Now, I would have thought 898 horsepower to power an SUV even this size is already on the borderline of being stupidly overpowered, but there's an even more powerful 1,400 horsepower version. And I think throughout this video, you will gradually understand that it's not about whether this car needs this much performance or this spec or that spec. It's about it can. We start here on the second row because this is the business. This is where most of the money has been spent in this car. And apart from the usual zero gravity chair, you know, both of them being zero gravity chair, apart from that, which is box standard for a car of this class, Zeekr is trying to solve a first world problem. Well, not quite first world problem, but Chinese first world problem, because the rest of the world doesn't have that many cars with top-mounted displays at this place. Let's imagine this car has a top-mounted display. You will see it in a minute, but let's just imagine this is where all of the other top-mounted displays are mounted. The problem with having a display at this position is that the glass roof gets divided in two. It reduces the size of the panoramic glass roof that's available to the second row passenger. And we know it's the second row passenger in this car that's calling the shots. So how do we solve this problem? And also, if we have a screen at this position fixed, what if the kids sitting in the third row wants to see their videos a bit closer to them? So to solve this Chinese first world problem, Zeekr pulled out all the stops to have this sliding top-mounted display. That is, if you watch closely, is on a separate set of rail right below the windscreen, right below the panoramic roof. And if I want, I can just press this button here to move it closer to the third row. And of course, I can adjust the tilt angle. I mean, I don't think this problem exists actually before this car, but somehow they think this problem needs solving. Being a full-size SUV over 5.2 meters long, third row space, sadly, is not this car's strong point. The front 2 rows are set to my position, and I cannot move my knee behind the second row seat. It's this tight. It's definitely smaller than the Li Auto i8 or the Envoy L90 and the Neo ES8. All 3 of them are pure electric SUVs. And this car, by being a plug-in hybrid, loses about 100 to 150 mils of longitudinal space, and it definitely shows here on the third row. And here comes my first piece of criticism. I understand why this third row is as small as it is, but Zeekr must have known this when they designed the interior packaging of this car. So I think they made a mistake. This car still focuses too much on interior space, so much so that the exterior proportions, especially from the side, looks like a minibus. I'll just put a picture up of the standard wheelbase Range Rover, which, in my opinion, that is the correct presence and the correct proportion of a full-size SUV. Now, Zeekr, knowing this car's interior space, will never be able to compete with other pure battery electric competitors. They could have designed, because this car is even longer than this extended wheelbase Range Rover, they could have designed a 5.2 meter long full-size SUV with the standard wheelbase Range Rover's proportion. You know, the extended wheelbase Range Rover, because it's extended wheelbase, the proportion is not quite as sweet as the standard wheelbase Range Rover. Zeekr could have done that car, but they didn't. They tried extremely hard to give this car more interior space, but the reality is it will never be able to compete with other battery electric competitors. And also, let's not forget, if people want space, if all people want is space, they could have just buy the Zeekr 009 MPV. This car is big, but it's no way as big as the Zeekr 009. I was picked up in a Zeekr 009 from the airport to this place. There's no replacement for that car's interior space, especially vertically speaking. We are driving the dual motor only 898 horsepower version. This car is currently on dual chamber air springs with a dual valve continuous variable dampers. But if you remember, we previewed this car in the 2025 Outlook. At that time, this car was rumored to have the fully active suspension from ZF. And to prove my memory didn't just, I remember it correctly, I asked some people at Zeekr and they admitted at one stage this car was supposed to have the fully active suspension from ZF, but it was dropped. I wasn't given a real particular reason, and I think it's a shame. Because now this car is more or less on the same kind of suspension setup to the Neo ES8 and the Li Auto i8 we reviewed 1 or 2 months ago. And you might think I didn't moan about the lack of the chassis being not sophisticated enough in those 2 reviews, and that's for a good reason, because this is a Zeekr 9. This is a 9X, and that's an ES8 and a Li Auto i8. And the Neo ES9 coming up next year, and the flagship, the real flagship, all of the upcoming Li Auto range extenders that is about to get a big refresh next year, all of them will have fully active suspension, and this, at least currently, it doesn't have, and I do think it's a slight disappointment. And having experienced the ET9, I think the fully active suspension is so much more, you can feel the effect of that fully active suspension even when you are going 30-40 kph. You don't need to push the car to the extreme to feel the car is actively balancing out, controlling the pitch, the dive. It's so noticeable. It's so much more noticeable than the third additional motor, the additional 500 horsepower on top of the 898 horsepower. I mean, what kind of people needs a car that accelerates to 100 kilometers an hour faster than this? I don't know. This is 3.9 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour. The 1400 horsepower version is 3.1, I believe. Who thinks that's a necessary performance add up? That extra performance is actually necessary? I don't know. But the fully active suspension, you can experience it in daily driving, in urban and on the highway almost every second. Now, I mentioned this car is a plug-in hybrid, so it has an engine. It's a 2-liter turbocharged engine. This car could actually deal with just having a 1.5 turbocharged engine. We are now going at 130 kph. A 1.5 turbocharged engine is plenty enough to keep the state of charge flat in this car, even at 130 kph cruise. But as I said before, this car is not about whether it needs that much performance. It's about it can have a 2-liter engine. And this engine has so much additional performance in reserve that this car, reportedly, it can charge this car's battery from 30% to 80% in 90 minutes while the car is going at 120 kilometers an hour on the highway. Now, why someone might want to do that is beyond me, but I think it's just to demonstrate that this engine has so much more capacity, additional capacity. And this plug-in hybrid, it's a plug-in hybrid. It has a 70 kilowatt hour battery. The one we're driving today is fitted with a 70 kilowatt hour battery. That's bigger than most battery electric vehicles. A battery that big on a vehicle this big still gives more than 380 kilometers rated CLTC range, and even in a more strict, more realistic WLTC range, this is still more than 310 kilometers. So this, compared to every other plug-in hybrids in the world currently available on the market, has a monstrous pure electric range that for most of the time in town driving you can treat this car more or less like a pure battery electric car. And all of the other plug-in hybrids, they're all fitted with a smaller, somehow inferior battery. This 70 kilowatt hour battery is rated at 6C charging. It can charge over 400 kilowatts for a 70 kilowatt hour battery. That's over 6C at the peak charging rate. This battery is so powerful that even in the tri-motor setup, in the 1400 horsepower version, just the battery alone, even when you're doing launch mode, when you're asking 1400 horsepower output, this engine doesn't need to assist. Just the battery alone is able to support the 1400 horsepower output. This is a monstrous of a battery, especially in a plug-in hybrid. And how does all of those figures translate into real-life driving? We are currently at 90 kph. The battery is only at 24% state of charge, so this is hardly its real top-line performance. And this is only the dual motor version, only 898 horsepower. We are at 90 kph, let's floor it. That's 120. It's absolutely excessive performance. But as I said before, this is not about whether this car needs this much performance. It's about being a flagship of Zeekr. It can have this much performance. We are currently going at 127 kilometers an hour. This car's NVH is totally on par with the Neo ES8 and the Li Auto i8 I tried recently, which means it's gonna be world class. And because of that, I believe in the presentations that we were given, this car's the NVH performance, they thoroughly benchmarked against the Rolls-Royce Cullinan. And it matches with my experience here. I would say this car's tire noise, except I don't know whether it's because the tarmac here is smoother than the tarmac I tried with the ES8. That place is over 2,000 kilometers north from where I am now, but I think this car's tire noise control is even better than the Neo ES8. You could say I'm picking bones with this car. You know, I'm comparing it against Range Rover and the Rolls-Royce Cullinan. You could argue that this car being 1/3 of the selling price of the Range Rover in China and about 1/10 of the selling price of the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, it doesn't have to. And I guess that's all fair enough, but this car could have been so much better. I suggest Zeekr go back to the drawing board, lay down all of the technologies they've already used in this car, and think about what makes a better product. Does bigger numbers on the spec sheet necessarily equate to a better product experience? I don't think so, because if you're just comparing spec sheets, the Range Rover and the Cullinan has no chance against this, okay? But they do provide some extra value that this car currently cannot provide. As for purchasing decisions, if you want a really high-end Zeekr, personally, I will still suggest you to buy the Zeekr 009 MPV. I think that is a better product than this Zeekr 9X. This has bigger numbers, of course, but that is a better product. And if you think this is too big and too powerful and too expensive, there is a Zeekr 8X slotting in between the 7X and this car coming very soon, I think in the next 3 or 4 months. So stay tuned. That is all from the Telescope today. If you enjoyed this video, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.